this holiday season, we are talking about how advocates are helping domestic violence survivors and their families find safety and hope, and there are ways that you can help too. Francine Garland-Stark with the Maine Coalition to End Domestic Violence is here with us, along with Christy Davis, a survivor, and really just appreciate both of you being here. And Christy, for you telling your story, thank you so much for coming. Christy, to the point that you are comfortable with, if you could just tell us a little bit about your story as a survivor and ultimately how an advocate helped.
Yeah, my first contact with an advocate was an evening. I had my now former husband, he was already out of the house. We had separated. Mm-hmm. He was not supposed to be coming back in the house. Mm-hmm. And one night he had broken in. He just burst in the front door. I had my youngest daughter and one of her little friends upstairs. And I was sitting downstairs on the sofa, and eventually he left. It was an extremely scary situation. And after that, I was scared he was going to come back. So I had turned the lights off. Actually, first I had to take that other child home, and my daughter, I got them out of the house because I didn't feel safe with them being there. Yeah. So I took them somewhere else. And then I'm scared he's going to come back because he had been, driving back and forth for a couple weeks, making the situation. It was just a really scary situation at that time. So at one point I was sitting in my bathroom, the downstairs bathroom with all the lights off. I had the window open and I'm on the phone, and I called a hotline. I didn't know what else to do. Yeah. Who was going to help me at that point? Nobody could direct me or tell me what to do. And so I'm asking this woman on the phone, like, what should I do? And she's like, I can't tell you what to do. But all I can say is you are sitting on your bathroom floor with the lights off, and I am scared for you. And
was that a wake-up moment for you?
Huge.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, I've got to do something about this now. That's it. So the next day, I got up and I went to the courthouse and I filed for a protection order.
Christy's story is not uncommon, right? And advocates really have helped. And I want to talk about your journey to become an advocate too, Christy. But in the meantime, Francine, the Coalition to End Domestic Violence here in Maine does so much good work. Can you tell us a little bit more about the organization for anybody who might not be familiar with it and the type of work that you do?
Well, the Maine Coalition to End Domestic Violence is kind of an umbrella. And we provide support to the regional domestic violence resource centers and other members who are providing the kind of direct advocacy that Christy's talking about. And our job is to try to make sure everybody has the best training, the best support, and that we work with state-level folks in the legislature, in the Department of Public Safety, in the Department of Corrections, in the Department of Education. We work closely with all of our partners at the state level to try to make sure we have the laws we need and that those laws are being implemented in the way that they were intended, to try to make sure that we can increase people's safety, increase their justice, increase their ability to survive beyond these terrible experiences.
And Christy, it sounds like this advocate through a domestic violence organization really did help you find safety. And in turn, you have become an advocate yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey and why having an advocate is so important for someone going through this?
I began going to a support group with Caring Unlimited, and that was one of the hugest things that helped with my, I guess you call it, recovery. And seeing all the other women just going through the same thing, and it felt so good to be heard by other women, and then you hear them and you know what they're experiencing. It was, I can't say it was a sisterhood, but it was
You're
pretty
not
close.
Alone.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be a part of something like that once I got myself to the other side. So, and that's when I wound up working. I was trained through these doors I did their hotline for almost 4.5 years. Wow. So, for me going from that first phone call to that hotline with that woman helping me on the other side, that one phone call, and then there I am doing it once a week, possibly twice a week for 4.5 years. it's awesome to know that you've had an impact and you've helped people.
It must feel so good to have been on the other side, and here you are helping these survivors get to safety. What was it like taking that first phone call on the hotline? Just curious.
Oh, I was
knowing
nervous.
that was really that was a turning point for you.
Yeah. I was nervous. I don't remember the specific one, but I remember being nervous my first night. And they do provide staff backup. There was somebody there if you had a problem, but you get used to it, and it was a good experience.
And I think the important thing to note too with your story is that she wasn't telling you what to do. The person on the other end of the phone was not telling you what to do.
That's part of the training.
She's saying, here's my experiences, I'm observing what you're telling me.
But for her to say, I am scared for you.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever had to say that to anybody in my 4.5 years. Maybe I was close a couple times, but that was to hear an absolute stranger tell you that.
Yeah. Life-changing.
Yes.
Life-changing. And I know, Francine, really since the pandemic, right, there has been a strain on some resources. How have you been able to cope and address that? And what does that mean for families who are seeking help?
At the beginning of the pandemic, one of the things that immediately happened was that all of the helplines went silent. It was really scary. It lasted for about a week. We were just, because you can't call a helpline if you have no privacy, if you're trapped in your home with someone who is abusing you. And so we were really concerned. And one of the things we did at the beginning was to work with our state partners to get the word out that we're still there. And if you can call us and we will help you. And so then there was this sort of steady return and uptick, but there was a real drop off during that very first 6 months of the pandemic when people really were trapped in their homes. And I think, one of the things that has resulted in is that a lot of folks experienced much more intense and relentless abuse. What we heard from the advocates on the helpline was that they were hearing scarier experiences and that they were needing to get engaged. And of course, the courts weren't working the same way, all of these things. So, one of the things that we learned through the process of the pandemic was really how vital that helpline is for people, because I think as Christy is talking about, one of the things that happens to folks who are being abused is that you can just feel like no one sees you. No one is seeing you and what's happening to you. And I think that when that advocate said, I am scared for you, part of what's happening in that conversation is that you were seen, even though it was on the phone, to hear the person's real experience and be able to reflect it in a way that helps that person solidify what they know to be true. But the abuser's telling them it's not true and they don't need to be so scared. I think that an advocate's first job is to really help people feel seen and heard, and to help them figure out how they can have space, physical space away from the abuser, how they can have psychological space against all the messages, and what they can do about their financial needs in order to make a bridge to their next life. So advocates have a huge job. And I think what we've been doing since the pandemic is improving our training, improving connections among advocates, and really connecting more and more with survivors who are willing to share their stories at the statewide level. At the legislature last year, we had 40 survivors come and tell their stories and why advocacy is so important.
One of the things you're talking about reminds me, it's alienation, right? You were experiencing alienation, and to have this person see you was so impactful. If people are watching and thinking, they know what a great organization, obviously doing a lot of good work. What are the ways that viewers can help the Maine Coalition to End Domestic Violence?
Obviously, one of the most important things we need is financial support to do what we do. Obviously, what's happening at the federal level has been affecting the money that we have to do what we do. But importantly, some of the most Critical funds are those that come from donors that we can use to do our advocacy, that we can use to go to the State House and help improve laws, that we can use to actually give money directly to pay for things that survivors need. Help them change the tires on their car so they can continue to get to work. Help people have security deposits so they can secure that place to live, and those kinds of things through our Liberation Fund. The most important thing for everyone to do is raise awareness. The saddest things that I ever hear is, I didn't realize there was this kind of help. And people don't realize what's out there till they need it. And then they really need someone to say, listen, have you ever heard of the Maine Coalition to End Domestic Violence? Have you ever heard of Through These Doors? They'll help you. And so that's the best referral, is somebody's friend or family or coworker or doctor or nurse to say, listen, I am scared for you, and there are people who can help, and this is how you can connect with them. And then they'll give them a card, they'll give them our helpline number, they'll connect them with the website, and then really the next journey begins.
And it is the season of giving, so donations, it could be big or small, right? How do they do that? How would a viewer give a donation to the Maine Coalition?
You can go to our website online. It's really simple to click on the donate button, and I know gifts of any size are welcome. We also have a Fiddlehead Friend option where you can be a recurring donor, so that if you're somebody who can't do a large single donation, maybe you can do $10 a month, and that would make a huge difference.
Christy, have you ever sort of let your mind go to, if you hadn't had these resources available to you, where you would be now?
I don't know what I would have done. When you said tires, at one point, Caring Unlimited helped me. They didn't actually give me tires, but my little Volvo wagon desperately needed tires. They put me in touch. They had a network of local vendors that they sent me to a garage, and he actually had brand new tires that had been on another Volvo that had been wrecked, and he got me a whole set of tires for cheap. I still had to pay some, but it was such a help. Just things like that, and honestly, the support group was key for me. That was, you're dealing with, your kids being pulled out of their home, away from their school, their friends, their family, somewhere new. You're dealing. It's almost, this time is the time of year that I left, and you're talking right before the holidays. You're dealing with your kids' trauma, your own trauma, and you're expected to make Christmas dinner, and it's just, it's a lot. And so to have that group, I wound up going to them after the holiday season, and it was just, it was like a life preserver, just grabbing on and just, getting all that assistance and that support.
Life-changing, life-saving, no doubt. And Francine, your website, if anybody would like to find more information.
mcedv.org. On mcedv.org, you can find information about the 24-hour helpline and connections to all of our member programs.
Excellent. Francine and Christy, thank you both so much for coming. And Christine, I know it's a lot to share, and we certainly appreciate your vulnerability in that. So thank you both.
Thank you.
And of course, we'll have more information as well on WGME.com.